And 3, 2, 1, we are live.
Welcome, everybody, back here on Segal Talk at the Martini Segal Theater Center, the Graduate Center CUNY in Manhattan, in Midtown. And it's a nice fall day out here. And still a lot of the things have not changed. So the time of uncertainties, numbers in this Corona time are getting up, and we are back to talk to theater artists around the world, but also in the US and in New York about this time and what we are experiencing. But we changed the focus now a little bit. We're gonna talk about theater and whatever it is, the political. It's a little research laboratory to see what is changing, what has already changed. We're gonna have in October, a series about theater of the real with Carol Martin and many artists focusing on documentary theater. There will be something on new dramaturgies and something on new ways of producing. And of course, the 2022 festival, the New York International Festival of the Arts, the Segal Center is putting together with the idea to invite all New York producing organizations, but also everybody who works in the parks and in parking lots to create something new to celebrate life again and the significance of the arts, theater, and performance. In order to really learn how to do best, what is necessary, what is useful, and what is really needed, we continue to talk to theater artists. And there are many places in the world where what we are facing here in New York is dire and complex as it is. And New York has done a great job, I think, containing it, but loss of jobs, especially for the artists. And this is a town of artists, if there is any in the US, next to Los Angeles. It is a really complicated. But if we look at our friends and colleagues in Lebanon, in Beirut, what they are going through on a daily basis because of the political situation, because of the economic situation, because of Corona, and then of course with that disaster, the explosion that happened, it is devastating and for us very hard, I think, even to really imagine. So back to the Segal Talks to give us a little bit of an insight is Sahar Assaf and Dima Mikhayel, both of them actually a week, I think, couple of days before the explosion. We talked here on Segal Talks, and you gave us an update of the situation. I remember very well how concerned you were, and that things aren't working, that you cannot trust the people in power, in charge, that the same old warlords are sitting at the wheels, and that it is no real democratic movement inside yet, that might put an end to corruption, that might put out forms and create forms that work, that have meaning, and that collaborate. Both of you are great workers in the field of culture and theater. You have contributed so much to the life. And I'm going to read for our audience just a little bit. Sahar Assaf is a theater maker and an assistant professor of theater at the American University in Beirut, where also I've been. It's a great place, a great work, what they do, a little oasis. And as many say, Lebanon and especially also Beirut is a special place also in the Arab world, an open place traditionally over thousands of years, but even now where still things are possible. Sahar did a great Garcia-Lorca's Blood Wedding as a site-specific performance, Shakespeare's King Lear, and then a very significant and highly controversial play, No Demand, No Supply, a documentary play about sex trafficking, about refugees who were forced into prostitution in the middle of the city, in front of the eyes of everybody. And courageously, she interviewed them and put it together into a theater and presented it. And it changed in the building. Got closed. She's a member of Lincoln Center's Directors Lab that Catania, the great Catania, put together, and many other things, a Fulbright alumni, and is deeply involved in theater in Beirut. And then also back is Dima Mikhayel, a writer, actress, and a university lecturer. She's also a Fulbright. It just shows how significant that organization is to also do what we do, to keep channels of communication open, to visit, to expand our knowledge and experience different places where we are. And she went to Rutgers, did creative writing there, and created something that became very well known, the Shubbak Festival, a storytelling festival. And
Cliffhangers.
Huh?
Cliffhangers.
Cliffhangers and the festival, yeah. And an Outburst Festival. So she's an organizer, also community organizer, but also an artist and a curator. And she is right now working on her a second play. And I think her former play just opened the week before the pandemic fully hit. So I apologize for talking so long. As you both know, this really is about listening. And but I think it is important to give a bit of context. Just yesterday, we had representatives from the Budapest School of Film and Theater, actually the only great school in the entire country that's basically being shut down at the current model, privatized, people fired or asked to leave if they don't agree with the new thing that the government is putting in. It would be as if the Republican Party now would say, we're going to take over Juilliard and we tell you how you should do your work. They had 3 years in a row Oscar nominations for student films, won one, and now a 150-year-old tradition that even survived the world wars is in danger. It just shows worldwide it's a complicated situation. We need to hear hear these voices, engage and support, but our heart still, it really reaches out to you. What's going on in Beirut? How is the situation? Maybe, Dima, maybe you start us off.
Sure. I mean, I'm sure everybody or almost everybody is aware that on August 4th, there was an explosion that took place in Beirut at the port. And it is classified as the third biggest non-nuclear explosion in recent history in the world. And over 200 people died, over 6,000 people got injured, and more than 300,000 people lost their homes. Basically, ever since, we are in a state of emergency. Relief work is constant, and it is initiated mostly by citizens, by people like us. This devastation only highlighted not only the absence of the government, but the fact that the government is actually only confirms what we knew before, is that the government is slowly killing us, right? This is a complete and utter neglect on behalf of the government. And so not only do they not help us, but they actually harm us. So ever since then, a lot of initiatives, a lot of collectives, a lot of nonprofit organizations have been working nonstop to bring aid and relief to those in need.
It's just incredible, even to listen to you, and that doesn't give us an idea. Sahar, tell us a bit.
What Dima said, exactly. I'll add to that the government is basically it's not only the recent government, it's whatever has been taking place in Lebanon for the last 30 years, basically starting with the end of the civil war. The same people, as you mentioned, Frank, the same warlords came together and decided to cut the cake and distribute it however they like, and they started ruling the country with different governments, different outfits. Every now and then they change the prime minister. So it's devastating, to say the least. It's outrageous. You would think that it's a corrupt government. We knew that, there was nothing really surprising except the fact that not in our worst nightmares did we ever imagine that these people are capable of literally killing us, destroying the city over our heads. This is, I'm not exaggerating by saying that. I live almost 13 kilometers away from the port, which is the location of the explosion. And I almost felt that the house was, stumbling on our heads. Everyone in Lebanon felt it. People in Cyprus felt the explosion. And we're talking about, this is the port. Beirut port is in the midst of the capital. Beirut is the most crowded city in Lebanon. Everything is centralized basically in Beirut. So, people commute there every day. It's 6 years people knew that there was 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate sitting at the port for 6 years. This is the route that I take every day to my work with my toddler. I mean, just the what if scenarios that goes in your head are killing us, you know, every day. And we're the lucky, we're some of the lucky people who survived that day. You know, we weren't injured. I'm very grateful. I mean, and I know Dima too, like we didn't lose loved ones, we didn't lose our homes, but we lost the city. Many people lost their loved ones. You know, I think of the mother, you know, sitting and watching her child, 3 years old daughter, playing in the midst of her living room, which is supposed to be the safest place on earth. A mother, a daughter in the living room. And suddenly the daughter flew and died in front of the mother's eyes, and like 200 stories like this one. You just cannot, you know, function properly after something like this happens. And what's worse is that these people that we're talking about, what I'm calling the warlords, everyone called the warlords, not one apology, not one official statement came, not one arrest, not one resignation. You know, the last prime minister, who's just a puppet, like came out and resigned, but not one, you know, official statement from the state explaining what happened. You know, they said in 5 days we're gonna issue a report, you know, whatever, like they were going to just tell us what was going on. Until today, almost 40 plus days after the catastrophe, nothing. You know, people, you feel like people are, we've been living like this. People are dying in vain in this country, you know, but this has been, you know, beyond anything I've witnessed in my 40 years living here. So I don't have enough words to describe the feelings, really. It's a range of deep sadness to rage, you know, and it deprives you of a very of the essence of our humanity. Like, I feel now all I want is revenge, and I'm sorry to say this, but I don't believe in accountability anymore. I don't want them to be tried. It doesn't matter. It won't change anything. You know, they need to be out, completely out. Like, they need to be out of this country, out of this world. I don't know, but these people, and you know, they're coming together now. Like, we're speaking, and they're busy figuring out, you know, the next prime minister and how they're gonna divide things in the country. So zero, you know, care or responsibility towards the citizens. So yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's heartbreaking, heartbreaking to hear, next to the ongoing economic crisis that you talked about, and you know, that you said, you know, we have only hours of electricity. You know, I remember we had some battery lights on when we were there. I don't know how you do it and now, and so you're not even sure that you can get on the internet, and the corona. So what is happening on that side? Do people, is the numbers going up? Is that so small compared to all the ongoing crisis that it's no longer on people's minds? Or
Well, the thing that,
No,
the thing that happened is that for the first few months of the pandemic, things were pretty much under control. Actually, we were doing pretty great. And I do want to emphasize, again, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, but to no thanks to the government. I think actually it's because we don't trust our government that we took it upon ourselves to stay home and take the necessary precautions. But the more things got dire and more complex, and the economic collapse just kept on worsening. You know, people took to the streets, and then after August 4th, I mean, you're out there in the streets cleaning, you're saving people, you're taking care of people, and I think just so many things compounded so that the numbers kept on growing. And so a few days ago, I think we reached to 1,000 cases a day. And we're a population of 6 million, and this was the highest we've reached. And this is important to note, because our healthcare system cannot support this. especially around the time of the explosion. People were being treated in parking lots. Pharmacies opened their doors to take care of minor injuries. People had to triage, you know, we lost electricity, and hospitals in their entirety got destroyed and lost electricity, which meant that people who were on life support lost their lives. Some of them lost their lives. So we are talking here of things that are beyond catastrophic, and to have these, you know, the pandemic, the economic collapse, and the August 4th explosion, this is more than anybody should ever handle. And we've been hit by all three.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do want to echo what Sahar said, that there's an immense feeling of sadness that is shared amongst us, but also an intense feeling of rage. That there's no time for conversation, for dialogue, for conflict transformation. No, it has made us fundamentally angry and outraged, and we don't want to listen anymore. They need to, as Sahar said, they need to get out. Something needs to happen. Something needs to change radically.
Yeah, I know you guys, you talk so much of that need to change, with some hints, you know, also of hopefulness. I'm sure now everybody is thinking, should I stay? Should I go? What do artists do? What do artists think about? What is, especially since we are in the field of theater and performance, what is happening?
You know, many artists took to the streets, like Dima said, and started doing relief work. You know, distributing food, gathering donations to help the people, cleaning. You know, you know, the humanity aspect of your personality as an artist is what comes to surface at moments like this. So all the people that we know, like the people, we're going to talk probably about the relief group, Frank, but everyone we know and who was able to go to the street and help, this is what they were doing. I mean, the theaters were destroyed. Every single theater in Beirut was hit directly, like some...
Really, like physically, every theater in Beirut.
Physically, like the Zucat studio, a very nice new space in Karantina, which is, you know, a few meters away from the port, was destroyed. They had to, you know, they had to revamp. Every single theater, you know, was hit, either glass broken, staff members injured, you know. So obviously the time now is for relief work, number one, because to be able to do theater, you need to make sure that the theater makers survive, you know. And this is a time, really, we're living, but it feels like you're living by chance here. We're in survival mode most of the time. You cannot plan. Like I was, you know, I was kind of getting used to the pandemic situation, started thinking about the future months ahead, and you know, picked up some projects that I've been putting aside with my, you know, collaborators. And then suddenly this happens that, you know, puts brakes to everything that you're doing. It's impossible to even think about, at least for me, I speak for myself, about a performance in the traditional sense, you know. So artists now are very much involved, like all concerned citizens, in relief work and in trying to help their communities.
Yeah, I mean, just to continue on what Sahar was saying, it reminds me, actually, I was talking to Yara Abu Nassar, who was on on a previous talk with me and you, Frank, who said that in Lebanon we normalize the abnormal, right? So we have a pandemic, we get used to it, we find a way to live, right? There's an economic collapse that is that changed our way of life drastically, but then we adapt again. And actually the day of the explosion, I was, because I lost my job because of the economic collapse and the pandemic. And so the day of the explosion, I was in my apartment, which is also not too far away from the port, with a friend of mine. And we both agreed that today is going to be the day we're going to work on our CVs and prepare some cover letters and apply to jobs. And then, we sat each one on her laptop and we're like, okay, we're going to do this. We can make something happen. And then the blast happened. And if there's something that that keeps coming up in conversations with friends and people around me, is that as soon as you think you have something, they find a way to take it away from you. As soon as you find a way to make something normal, to have some semblance of a quote unquote normal life, they just take it away from you again. And I think part of the reason why I am so outraged is because I think this government, as I mentioned before, and Sahar mentioned before, they are killing us, they're harming us, but also fundamentally humiliating us. I think we are so many things, and one of them is humiliated. As soon as we think we're humans, and yes, we can pursue art, right? Which is such a privilege, as we all know, but also such a necessity. So Sahar, you were getting back into connecting with your collaborators and picking up projects that the pandemic put on hold. And then they rob us of that, right? So I think us as artists, and specifically as theater makers, because I speak for myself, we're also wondering what is the purpose of what we do in moments like these. And I think this is one of the questions that Sahar, you thought about also when you kind of connected with people and we formed the theater relief group. So I don't know if you want to talk about that also.
Sure. Yeah, just because, a few days, maybe 2 days after the explosion, even like on the day, like at night, I started receiving messages from friends and collaborators that I've worked, international, collaborators that I've worked with, about what's going on, how can we help? And I know many other people were receiving the same messages. And it was, I cannot even describe the moment, Frank, in words, honestly, like that night and the few, days afterwards, is just, it's beyond language for me. But and I didn't know what to say, honestly. I was like, what do you mean? What, like, as theater makers, what do we need now? We need to be alive, number one. But I thought maybe it's a chance, because I knew that theaters were hit, and I didn't know yet about the number of artists who were injured or who lost their homes. So I reached out on WhatsApp basically to every single theater maker and artist, technician, director I know in this country, whoever I have their mobile number, Dima, one of them, like everyone. And I just wrote a message and I said, do you guys want to think out loud together? I think more than 50 people were on that first message. And then immediately, people started responding positively. And I remember Hanan Haj Ali, a famous, actor and director here, theater maker, she said, let's meet, let's schedule a Zoom meeting. And it was, honestly, it was such a wonderful way to support one another, because what we needed most in those days was to talk about what happened, just to really try to understand how come we're still alive. Everyone's supposed to be dead, but we're alive. You find yourself alive, but there's so much destruction around you that it feels like you're in, it's an apocalyptic situation where you're not supposed to be alive. So anyway, we met on Zoom. That was like 3 days after the blast. And we decided to call the initiative, if you like, the grassroots kind of movement, theater relief group in Lebanon. And the aim was simply to reach out to artists in the country, anyone, regardless of their nationality, gender, whatever, kind of identity they have. If they're in the country, they've survived this, they've been working here, living here, students, theater students. So the idea was to really try and find ways to support one another and to also support the theaters that were hit. So that's how it started. And then we obviously needed to raise some funds. So we came up with this idea of Beirut No Show Tonight, which for many of us, the feeling was there's no way the show cannot go on. The city is destroyed, the theaters are destroyed, the artists are wounded. Like, there's no way we can continue the show. We have to stop, and we have to mourn the losses. And this mourning is going to take some time, we know that. So we decided that the fundraising event is going to be a performance that cannot happen. And we started selling tickets, like ghost tickets, basically, tickets for a performance that won't happen, and people were free to pay whatever they want, as much as they can. And the response was so heartwarming. Many friends, international friends, people from outside, many endorsements from people we don't even know, shared the event on their websites, on their theater groups. It spread really fast. And the first phase of that campaign, which ended August 31, so almost 1 month after the launch, we were able to raise around $12,000, which is really symbolic, honestly. But it was, it was needed to just say that we're here for you. There's no one for the artists. I mean, the last people you would think about, even if the government was going to think of anyone, they weren't going to think of the artists, but they're not anyway. So, but usually the artists, especially the freelancers, they take the hardest blow in such circumstances. So that first phase supported around 28, individuals and 6 venues. Now, the problem is, as many people know, that the banking system in Lebanon is part of the corruption, saga. So we're still trying to get our money basically from the banks, but this is the intention. Now there's a second phase going on until end of September, and Dima can talk a little bit maybe more about the event and what's happening now.
Yes, I do want to say that I joined the group almost as soon as it was formed, and it was so important for so many reasons. But also after the explosion, we just we didn't understand why we were alive, just like Sahar said. But also we didn't know what to do. Now what do I do, right? I was going down to the streets to help clean, which felt like, I don't know how to describe this. There were hundreds of people like myself in the streets, people from high school to people in their 60s. Just, they'd get their own shovels, their own broomsticks, their own garbage bags, and their masks on, everything, and their gloves, and they're cleaning the streets. There's no sign of the government. Actually, there are photos that are just carved into my memory of police officers and soldiers either sitting down on their phones, or one of them checking out a woman who was cleaning the rubble, just eyeing her. And so it's such a poignant and disgusting image of really that symbolizes what our government is like. So we did that. But back to the group, it's that suddenly this group formed out of this necessity to talk, to have a community, because we can't meet in person. And so just to form this online community and to know that we're working towards the same target, that we want to help each other, And this is something we've always done, right? We've worked so much with barely any budget that we've always, you know, had other theater maker friends who'd come and pitch in and offer, you know, look, no, I'll do the lights for you, or I'll be your stage manager. And so we've had that culture because, you know, we don't have any government support for the arts and very few funding opportunities. And so for this to kind of to come together was nothing short of magical, but at the same time not surprising at all. And as Sahar said, the first phase of the fundraiser already took place, and we're in the second phase right now. We're still accepting donations. And if you visit our Facebook or Instagram page, you'll see all the details on how to donate, and also, you know, a full transparency on where the funds are going, who they're helping, and what will happen basically to the donations that people make. And as we said before, it's a completely grassroots initiative with no hierarchy. It's just people kind of volunteering their skills, even learning skills. I never thought I would be good at like creating social media content, but you know, this made us you know, explore what we can do and the ways in which we can help. And the importance of the fundraising event, Beirut No Show Tonight, is, as Sahar said, everything came to a stop on August 4th. And I don't think we can make art in survival mode. So as long as we are in survival mode, what we can do is survive. And if we can and we are capable, then help others survive. So we are thinking of individuals, fellow artists. We are thinking of theater venues. These places have been our homes for years and years. I've been going to these theaters since I was 8 years old. And so they're my second home. And seeing the devastation and knowing that for so many of us, this is our only source of income, and it has already been affected by the pandemic and the economic collapse. We want to survive, but we want theater to survive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also, sorry to Frank, if I may add one thing, because I think it's important. The group now has more than 100 members, and just to highlight the transparency aspect that Dima spoke about, and it's very important for us, it's an open group, meaning anyone at any moment can join. It's really a grassroots, pure grassroots. We don't accept money from governments or governmental institutions. We only accept donations from citizens, like individuals, or people who are not affiliated with the governments. And also the group now is functioning with 3 main subgroups. Like we have a communication committee, we have an outreach and support committee, and we have a fundraising committee. And these committees are also open. So anyone at any moment, any artist in Lebanon would like to join and help, offer their skills, or help, they're welcome to do that. So that's even, that's very honestly, this group has been our healing, kind of like, it really is supporting our healing process very much. So I just wanted to say that, and to thank all the artists that have been working. It's impossible to say all the names, but they know themselves. And without each and every one of them, this wouldn't have been possible. And it's really, you are all making history. I just wanted to say that.
And so also, oh, sorry, go ahead, Frank.
No, please.
Well, I also wanted to say that a lot of Lebanese artists in the diaspora are also a big part of the Theater Relief Group, including several people in New York who are attending the meetings despite the time difference, and who are going through their own kind of grieving and their own kind of pain they feel extremely lucky to be alive, but also they feel a lot of pain for being away from the country. And so a big thanks to them also for giving so much of their time and effort to be there for the artists, for each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if there's a way for HowlRound to implement or show the website or where to go. If not, maybe people can find through your names, your Facebook sites. But I think we are working on something to have a closed caption to say that I think it is important to show solidarity. Even as you say, economically, most probably will take billions of dollars, but it is important to show compassion and to feel, the real pain what you have. And we could be you, we could sit in your place. I could have been in that apartment trying to write a job application, when that explosion happens and the windows burst. And we all distinguish often, I break a leg, that's terrible. Someone in my family breaks a leg, that's already bad. A neighbor, okay. Down the street, well, and then in another part of the city, in another country, but it shouldn't be. This really is something we should take very serious and support. And I hope there is a way that also the American theater community or the European ones, to help you out. So if you are listening, please do. Everything does matter. Perhaps also down the line, you come and give workshops, present there, find some money. If you're a foundation or someone in a foundation, I think this is an initiative. It is created by artists, run by artists. It is worth of support. It is of serious consequences. It will go a long way, whatever you do. And I remember, Sahar, I think you were with your father a bit away in the mountains when you said, I'm recording him, I was thinking about new plans for work. It did happen in the time of Corona, this oversight. Who knows, what are the additional complications that maybe, was next to the complete loss of responsibility, even less in that time, and carelessness. What are your thoughts now? What, if you said, what is the role of a theater artist? Is there something that comes to your mind of significance where you said, well, I think when this is over, who knows how long it takes, but there is something I will make sure that will be different, or I will fight for, or is there something going through your heads?
A lot of things, honestly, Frank, but there's one thing that I'm struggling with, because, I think, for instance, I've been very much interested in documentary theater recently. It's a wonderful technique and, genre that really allows you to connect with your community and to talk about issues that matter to you. And what's been mattering to me, since the revolution up until today, are the stories of the people that we lost, basically. The stories of, we had, during the revolution, we had many martyrs, people lost their lives, for the cause of the revolution. And I call them martyrs.
You mean last December, October?
17, yeah, the October 17 revolution, people were killed. By militia, men, basically by people affiliated with the government. So on the streets, one guy was assassinated in front of his wife and son. I think of him, I think of all the people who lost their lives, and I want to tell their stories, but I'm conflicted, honestly, as an artist, because your job is to highlight stories and stories that speak to you, but at the same time, am I entitled, I keep asking myself, can I tell these stories? Obviously I need to ask the families, and I need to ask the people, concerned, related to the victims and the martyrs. But this is something that's very tricky for me, and there's an ethical dilemma that goes on in my mind. So this is one of the things that's always on my mind these days, and it's stories about loss, it's stories about grief, and about how we remember. Definitely it's related to living with my father most of the time these days due to corona, and you know, listening to his stories about his times and about, so there's that. There are, I told you there were other projects that, you know, I've picked, but then the blast happened. Actually, last night, my collaborator and I from London, Rachel Valentine Smith, who I met at the Lincoln Center, Lincoln Lab, Director's Lab at Lincoln Center. And we've worked together on several projects, and we've been wanting to do a multilingual Hamlet with a female Arab Hamlet. So that project has been going on for slowly, you know, for a while. And of course I couldn't like continue during the last period, but last night Rachel and I had the first Zoom rehearsal kind of, and it just, you know, it felt in a way timely, because we're highlighting the grief theme in Hamlet. This is what we're interested in. There's honestly, it's very sad and it's very dark, but this is what the environment is, you know, feeding into me and my artistic calling in a way. So there's so many things, but nothing is clear. It's like foggy all the time, because, you know, as Dima said, in times of survival, you have to survive first. And this, I still feel every morning is still very hard, you know, to just think about what happened. And, you know, every day you learn about a new story, like 200 people who died, and we still have 9 people missing. We have 300,000 people displaced. Like every day you learn a new story about these innocent victims. So it's hard to cope, you know. We're trying to take it day by day, you know. There's obviously, it will feed into the artistic work that I'm going to do for the next decade. Absolutely, I say that. How and what exactly, I don't know yet, and because I don't know what feels right. Nothing feels right in a way anymore. You know, no topic feels the right topic for today. Like there are many stories I want to tell, but which story should I begin with? I don't know. Maybe I'll know in a month, but right now it's very honestly hard to figure out. It's just, I've never felt as paralyzed as an artist like as I feel today. I've always had so many things I wanted to say and so many projects I wanted to do, and I've always started with one project or the other. Now I do have many, I still do have many stories. I still have many ideas that I wanted to share and explore and research, but I don't know where to start. I don't know what is right. But that's only me, Dima.
I mean, I feel many similar, and I'm thinking of so many similar things that you are, Sahar, is that I do feel paralyzed. I also feel that it's too soon to make art about what happened. Yeah. We can talk about it and barely find the words, and so it's, I think a lot of us feel that it's too soon to even consider making art around what happened. And also what you said, Sahar, is, you know, who am I to tell these stories? And I've been feeling something very similar. You know, I was not harmed. I still have a home. And this feeling of luck and privilege is also, you know, should I, do I want to, am I allowed to even talk about this when I'm still in one piece? And so, and this is something we will grapple with for the next decade, right? This is just as the Civil War, you know, we still make art about the Civil War. And I think we should always make art about the Civil War. There's an entire government that is stealing our history away from us, and art is one of the few ways to document it, and to document personal experience. There's no other way. They rob us, and we're creating it, and we're documenting it. And so it's a privilege, but it's also a responsibility. But recently I've been working on my second play, and it's about 2 women in an abusive relationship. And I started writing it because I've you know, as a queer person, I've heard so many stories about people I know and people I don't know in Beirut and in the country who are queer and who have been in abusive relationships. And even, you know, domestic violence or intimate partner violence is rarely talked about in this country. Queer intimate partner violence is almost never talked about. And so I felt it was very important to write this piece. And some days I sit and write and it feels healing. It feels like it's one of the few things that are keeping me sane. And other days I think my script is worthless. And you know, it's been 2 weeks. I haven't written a single word. It really depends. And you know, the other day, and I'd like to mention this very, there's a wonderful dancer named Alexandre Polikevich. He and one or two people were arrested during the revolution in one of the protests and beaten up and held even for no reason. And just a while ago, they were summoned to appear in military court, right? These are civilians, and it should be illegal to be summoned to appear in military court. And that's what's been happening. So again, as artists in the Theater Relief Group and other artists around the country, and even we're trying to gather as much as we can, you know, international press and put pressure and give visibility to this issue. And that is to say, you know, that day I was sitting, you know, oh, okay, I need to write a few new pages. And I couldn't write a single word because we were trying to get in touch with anybody we knew to try to get more people to shed light on what's happening and get more media attention to it. And so we are living, the expression living day by day has never been truer. That is what we are capable of right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the situation we are in, and you are so much that we really do not know what to do. We do not know what's ahead of us. We are surprised by things that happen on a daily basis when we open the screens, the papers, or in your case, you look out of the window and you see something that then went around the world. It's shocking. I can only imagine what it really means to the subconscious of a country, you know, and how deep this. When we all hope, of course, that at least something will come out of it, that something better, that these people have not died in vain. I see, Sahar, you have faces on a poster behind you. Is that related to? There's a poster. Is that from a theater play? Yeah.
No, this is actually this is related. It's from the Museum of Innocence. I got it in Istanbul.
In Istanbul,
yeah, the Museum of Innocence, and these are pictures of women that basically newspapers used to publish pictures of women who were raped or who were violated, but also pictures of women who gave themselves away to men before marriage. So their fathers would push the boys or the men to marry them, but if they didn't like newspapers would publish the images of the women and cover. We're still living in these shitty situations here. You know, it's a patriarchal society everywhere, and this is just
it's a tough moment. I mean, we talked with Tiago Rodriguez, a great director from Portugal, and he told the story of the great Russian poet Akhmatova, who was under house arrest, who wrote her great poems, long poems during the siege of Leningrad, where, you know, so many people died of starvation. And her son got arrested and had to go to prison. And she went to visit him every day when she could. And there were long, long lines. They made it extremely complicated. And the story is that someone in the line saw her and said, "Aren't you Akhmatova, the poet?" And she said, "Yes." And she said, "I'll let you in front, but you have to write a poem about it, you know, about this moment." And she did. And in a way, perhaps, you know, this is, as Dima said, it's the history, the alternative history. It's the capturing of that moment, and also what Sahar, what you said, the ambiguity of it, the moment where you say you are in a dilemma that itself, is of significance, and that theater shows that there are no, and so there's nothing is black and white, the complexity of real life that's actually not lying to us, but it's so easy to say from here. So we will try really to encourage everyone, I myself included, to find a way to show solidarity with you as colleagues and friends, and also as a part of the social and cultural artistic fabric of that important country. How do you feel the outside world is connected to you, or do you feel it's isolated? It is something you have to go through alone. And I know you mentioned your friends out there, but what would be the greatest help you can get?
Mobilize against the Lebanese government, boycott the government, boycott the warlords, take them to criminal courts. This is it. I honestly, I've been listening to what Dima is saying, and just in this moment with you, Frank, and Dima here, it feels like very dark. And I don't want to sound personally that we're just sitting here nagging about a situation, but the feeling of helplessness is really paralyzing, because we've, like the revolution, for instance, that broke on October 17, that was a breath of fresh air. That was the first time in our lives we feel, yes, some concrete positive change might happen, because it really expanded to the entire country. Usually even protests used to happen in the city, in the main city, but with that revolution, it's everywhere. But honestly, to answer your question, we feel very supported from fellow humans, fellow citizens of the world, artists around the world. And this has been really very important for our healing process. But at the same time, we do feel helpless when we, with the current political climate and the right-wing kind of governments that are ruling the world right now. I mean, when you see like the president of France coming and negotiating with the same people who did the crime, it's just unbearable, honestly. And this is something I don't know what we as citizens, unarmed, can do. You can talk so much about it, but why? We've been talking about this. Dima mentioned this, like they're erasing the history. This is what they've been trying to do for the last 30 years. You're not allowed to do a play about the Civil War. There's no one monument in the country to honor the lost lives. There's 17,000 disappeared. They could care less about their families and about their whereabouts. There is no history book in Lebanon. Like, we don't teach the history of the country post the French mandate. It's just ridiculous, what these people have been doing. And it doesn't seem a problem for the big administrations around, So in that sense, yeah, you feel alone, you feel stuck in a way. Like, what can you do really? We're tiny humans living in our bubbles, creating art because we think it's necessary, we think it's a right. And then one day you die in a blast, like, it's so absurd, it's surreal. I really don't know what to say to that question, but I think we've been receiving extraordinary support from fellow artists around the world, and that has been really, really important for us.
Yeah, and I can only imagine what it means, these extreme situations of, the difficult political, economic situation, then a revolution where for months, right, people were on the street every day. I remember speaking on the phone to Sahar. He said, I'm on the demonstration with my daughter, and but there were millions of people, if I'm right. And then the same government you protest against shuts down because of Corona. Then that same government, is responsible for one of the greatest explosions, not in wartime, in mankind, of the history of mankind. So I also don't know what to say except, that to acknowledge that this exists and that it is wrong, and that we care and feel for you, and that that we need to find a way also teach and to transfer that kind of an experience, which is so hard in the world. How do you transfer experience, not just knowledge, but also human experience? And as you said about civil war, about your father, all that, and that art will come in. But in the moment, you know, as you say, this is about survival. And I think we here in the US, with all the Western world, all our complaints, that level is on a very different height, you know, than yours. But how is food situation? The port, I think, was closed and then it's opened partially, I think, but are things coming? And I heard that there's not even a factory that produces glass in Lebanon, so everything has to be imported. It's been so destroyed, the industry and the initiatives, and the corruption is so high. I mean, this is just not working. So how is the situation? How do you guys get your food? I remember last time, I know you could pay in dollar or Lebanese money, but the banks refused to give the dollars of their own money out. You couldn't get it, or just a very small amount. So what is happening on a daily life?
Well, everything is more than quadrupled. The price is more than quadrupled, and so everything that we took for granted, anything that would, something that cost $10 would have been 15,000 Lebanese pounds, which was quite an affordable thing. And now you have to take into consideration that something that costs $10 costs 75,000.
Milk, butter, fruits, and
things, yeah, absolutely. And so this is catastrophic when it comes to anything that is needed to fix homes, because we import so much metals, glass, even the tiniest screw that used to be what, $1, which was 1.5 is now 8, right? The things we used to buy without thinking, to hang a new artwork, everything is ridiculously more expensive. And this is just, to hang an artwork. So how do you go about rebuilding your home that has been devastated when the prices are this way? And so, that's what I can say about what's happening. I know that also the port in the north, there's another port in Tripoli that started functioning more than usual to kind of take some of the burden after the losses in the Beirut port. But I also, if I may go on a small tangent from this, is we're talking about ways the international community can support, and we're fortunate enough to work, as the theater relief group. And I know that some people can't donate money, but they can do so much more, or different things like keep the conversation going, right? The media loves to cover things as soon as they happen, and slowly we disappear off the face of this planet, but we're still in the same mess. Mess doesn't even begin to describe it, right? So keep talking about us, keep mentioning what's happening, keep mentioning the initiatives, share. We have the theater, we're part of the theater relief group, but there are so many other grassroots initiatives. And so, you can look them up. We all have Facebook and Instagram presence. So, share these with your connections, with the artistic institutions that with anybody in your communities. Also, if you know people from Lebanon, hire them. If they encourage their artwork, encourage their writing, and just keep sharing so that so what happened keeps getting talked about, so that we are not so that this is not forgotten, because we need to keep the momentum going. We have a long way to go.
And don't accept that your tax money goes to the Lebanese government or anyone affiliated with the Lebanese.
Yeah, do not donate to the government.
That's an important message, actually. Yeah, let's not go where it's supposed to go, and it also supports the wrong people and the wrong message.
Because it won't get to the people. It's going to go into their pockets again and again.
Perhaps also it means, for organization that hosts, and we are part of the onthemove.org, that great organization that fosters international exchange, and Marie Lesur and others, so also to host artists from Lebanon, perhaps, give them a moment of peace, at least for them. They suffer the most. I think they're the most vulnerable, and as artists here in New York, so you cannot, musicians, for example, in New York City, they cannot even perform in bars, because if you sell alcohol and you have a performance, the police will stop it, for good reasons. It's also, Corona related, but it's devastating for all the independent musicians. They're completely out of jobs and completely out of work. And so many of them used to work in the restaurants that are all closed. So artists, really, the most generous souls, people who dedicate their lives for the beauty and what's true, are on the front line here. And it's also going to be very complicated. So I can only imagine how it is in a catastrophic situation. So you have all reasons, you don't say nagging or complaining, but you have all reasons to be outraged. And as you said, the International Court in La Hague, it should be prosecuted as a crime against humanity. This is beyond any negligence, it is, and who knows what else is out there you guys don't know about at the moment. So, and the Russian owners of the ship, don't take responsibilities, and they just changed flags, and who knows, who took things out there anyway in between, or it was resolved. It's just, it's hard. What do you do when you go to sleep tonight? What do you read? Or if you do it all, or the music, what do you listen to if it comes to art? Is there something that sustains you? What do you turn to in such a situation, both of you as individuals?
For some reason, I've been waking up to the music of two Arab artists recently, like on repeat. Rafi'i, who's a rapper and singer, like songwriter, Palestinian, Jordanian, and very political, interesting lyrics. Like I've been listening to his song Fitna. Do you know it, Dima? Like on repeat. I love it. And
can you say the lines? Is it easy to translate a few?
Let me think. So there's this song that he sings, I think, like I'm singing it to Beirut, but I think he's singing it to his city. I don't know but the song goes like "Tghayarte," which means you've changed. You've buried me under your streets, and my voice is echoed in its sewerage. I'm trying to remember the lyrics. In your absence, we have no neighbors. We are the new stories. We're the new presents. It's a beautiful song, very beautiful song, and I'm singing it every day to Beirut. It's sad. Like we've been saying goodbye to Beirut, the Beirut that we knew. For the last, sorry.
Yeah. It's sad, and we also know that, the great artists who left, Simon Fattal and Tel Adnan, their house also with all the artworks, the gallery, it was destroyed. She wrote this great poem, The Arab Apocalypse, about the sun, and that almost, fits that explosion. It's a devastating loss. Dima, how do you look to, or can you even connect to works of art? Are they of significance in this moment?
Yeah, actually, and I think this applies to a lot of people. Art brings us comfort, right, and solace in these much needed times. I've been listening to a band, an Arab band called Nurdistan, and they have a song based on Nizar Qabbani's poetry called Maliha, which literally translate means salted, and it's just talking about how the Arab world, he says that our poems have, and our words and our mouths have become salted, in the sense that they've become bitter and arid, and our seats and our curtains. And when I listen to it, I imagine the seats and curtains of theater venues, and that this is what's been happening to us. So I've been listening to their music. They have another song called Tafah al-Kayl, which means we've had enough, and he screams it on a megaphone, and it also reminds me of the days of the revolution, and that also brings me comfort. And I've been reading Maggie Nelson's The Art of Cruelty, about the representation of cruelty in art and media, and going from Artaud and the theater of cruelty to onwards, and thinking about the kind of art that we will make in years to come, and will we feel the need to replicate the cruelty and to show it, and does that perpetuate cruelty, and kind of all these questions that come to mind as an artist in this region.
Yeah. Well, thank you, really, thank you both for sharing. I know how hard it is. I know how complicated it also must be to get a call from someone in America or in the West, and now they want to know what's going on, and then you think they will forget about us anyway. I remember HowlRound and us, we thought we talked earlier, but you guys said, listen, Frank, we're cleaning up the apartment as I speak. I don't know what you're talking about,
But yeah, thank you, Frank, really.
Yeah.
This is.
But still, so we got a sliver of your reality, how you experience it. And also, yes, it is a moment of the time of Corona, a moment in the time of a life of an artist, of serious artists who create work under the most difficult circumstances. And I would like to remind everybody of that. It is an art made out of love and out of conviction, and it's not because you're professionally hired and now you got the job and now you do it. So this is a very different ball game those are playing here, and we have to support them. I think it's the very best of mankind. What we see, it stands for the very, very best, what we have to achieve. For people go crazy about sports, but I think what you guys do, this is what represents a human spirit. And I hope, that this time will pass, and that out of the suffering something good will come out. The great poet Hölderlin, the German one, who said if there is big danger, that what will save us is also growing, but slowly, and like plants, maybe it will take time, and things do change over time. Nothing lasts forever, not the good, not the bad. But really, thank you for sharing. It's such a hard moment for all of you, but everybody here, I think also the HowlRound community, and I hope I can speak in their name, not only the organization, but also the listeners, the artists, people from universities and students all around the world are so listening that we think of you, and please to everybody, do support them or reach out, comments or money, but also perhaps do some of their artwork, invite people from that great country that has been a beacon of liberty, at least also in that world. So let's support them. Thank you both. And we will add the link to our site, the Segal Center site. I hope also HowlRound can do it, but if not, people can find you on Facebook and connect to that. So maybe make it sure it's a highly prominently displayed. Thank you both for joining, and I'm glad the electricity stayed, that we could do it, say hi to everybody we know, and our heart really reaches out to you. Thank you. And
thank you so much.
Really, really stay safe. You have a responsibility also for yourself, and be kind and generous to yourself, but keep on doing what you do also well. And to our listeners, thank you for taking the time to listen and to be with us. I know there's a lot of content out there, just a lot on HowlRound. There are so many parallel things, but this is important. what our fellow humans, fellow artists are going through, and we need to share that, and we need to have compassion. And I think this is also what theater people really do and have, and why they are different, why they are good people. So thanks to Halron, VJ, and Thea for hosting us, and Travis, this Andy from the Segal team, and everybody to listen, but especially to the viewer. If there are messages are of significance, it's for you, so that you think about also your work, your practices, and your realities, and how fast they can change, and that we have to do everything to create a better world and to leave a better world behind. So thank you, and I hope to hear you, see you back next week. We have Gideon Lester, who will talk about Bard College and his work with international collaborators. We will have Baraka Sela as the opening. She has been for decades a worker in the field of arts, a consultant and a curator and a thinker. And now with the Black Lives Matter movement, I'm sure lots of her thoughts are highlighted. And then we will talk about our Prelude Festival, which we now do for the 15th or 16th time, the only festival in New York City that is dedicated to New York City artists and companies. And we show work in progress, as always, discussion. And of course, we were thinking, should we cancel it or not? But we are going to do it online. So the two curators, Miranda and David, will talk to us what it means to do theater in the time of Corona, what artists are doing. We commissioned artists, so that might be also of interest to you. It's starting October 22nd, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the next week also again. But tomorrow they will give us a first insight, and it will be of interest also to me, so we know even better what our curators are doing. But again, Sahar and Dima, thank you, and I really hope to see you all soon. I'll come and visit whenever it's possible, really, and I hope you